with us this evening Mr. Bob Diss from the auditing firm Lindsay and Associates to present to you the official report of the fiscal year 2015 City of Laurel financial statement.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As you mentioned, my name is Bob Diss, Lindsay and Associates. And I'm not going to touch that microphone again. I don't want to catch what's going around. And I'm here to talk about the audit for the City of Laurel for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2015. If you have it in front of you, great. If you don't, it'll be just as fascinating. Page 1, as always, is the audit opinion letter, where we give the city a clean opinion, also called an unmodified opinion. In there, we do make note of the fact, there it is on page 2, change in accounting principle. There was a big change in accounting relating to your pension plans. GASB 68 came out and said you suddenly have to put all that liability on your books. And so we restated beginning net position downward by almost $10 million. Didn't have any effect at all on fund balance, if that means anything to anyone. We'll go over that in a minute. Now the actual first part is called the management's discussion and analysis from page 4 up through 12, through page 12. It's written by Michelle and maybe with input from others, and tells the reader whatever he wants the readers to know. Financial highlights, and always compares the current year, meaning 2015, to the prior year, 2014. And it also looks ahead to 2016 a little bit. Now the actual statements are there on page, begin on page 13. There's 2 sets of financial statements. The first set is called the government-wide statements. They take everything of the city into account, fixed assets, depreciation, expense, accumulated depreciation, and this new number called net pension liability. It's about 2/3 of the way down on the page there, and it's, what is it, about $11.1 million. That's because the fine folks up in Norwalk, Connecticut said, you've got this liability, it's a long-term liability, you need to show it. And that's the number that the actuaries at Bolton came up with. You also see things like deferred inflows and outflows of resources, and that relates to things like payments made after the measurement date and changes in assumption, things like that. Now the related income statement is there on page 14. Expenses start here, and then revenues by program go across, and general revenues down here at the bottom. And on that basis of accounting, you increased your net position by about $600,000, not taking into account the $10 million or so that we had to restate it downward. Now the fund statements, which are only current assets and current liabilities, almost a cash basis, but not really, begin on page 15 with your assets by different funds up here, and then the liabilities down here. Your reconciliation is going to be over to the right, and that's always going to be things like long-term liabilities, capital assets, things like that. The related income statement is shown there on page 16 with your revenues at the top and expenditures at the bottom, like you might expect. And a reconciliation, again, over to the right. And by when you combine all the different funds, the fund balance declined by about $300,000 on that basis of accounting. And then there's, I believe, yes, fiduciary fund. That's for your pension trust fund, 457, I think it is, plan. These are assets not owned by the city, but you have a fiduciary responsibility. The notes to the statements begin on page 19. Most of them are going to be boilerplate. I'll point out the one in particular that's brand new. But most of them are going to be the same as they are every year. Note 1 always talks about significant accounting policies. I'll just go through the notes here and see if there's anything of note to point out. I'll point out on page 32, note 3, are the deposits and investments. It shows where the city keeps all of its investments. The bulk of it in repurchase agreements. You've also got some in MLGIP and other things as shown there. Other things of particular note. Going up to page 36 is going to be your capital assets. First column shows the ending balances from last year, and then increases in fixed assets and depreciation expense. And then there were some disposals as well, and that shows the ending column over to the right. There's a summary of long-term debt on page 38. Your long-term debt declined by about 1.3 million over the year, down to about 7.6 million. And now the big footnote that is brand new this year is note 15, retirement plan on page 41. That's brand new, and it tells you everything you ever wanted to know about the city's retirement plans. Of course, the big number is up on the front, the face of the financial statements, back on page, I think it was 11, where you've got a net pension liability of about 11 million. The way that's calculated, you might look on page 46 toward the bottom. Your total pension liability is about 43.8 million, and the net position of the plan, how much money you have in it, is about 32.6 million. Track that off, you get your 11.1 million. And it's funded, almost 75% funded, which is interesting because that's very close to the state retirement percentage as well. We have a lot of clients that are on that. But there's all kinds of things. The sensitivity of it, if the market goes up or down, how's that going to affect your net pension liability? Well, if the market does really well, you have more money and your liability will go down. And that's shown there on page 47. Let me see. That's probably the most interesting stuff in the notes. After that, there's some required supplementary information on the pension plan. They're on page 55 and 56. And then toward the back, you're going to find original and final budget compared to actual. They're on page 59. Original, final budget, actual, and we compute the variance. And then on the following pages after that, we break it out more line by line rather than summarized. And that brings me to the back cover. Did anybody have any questions?
I'm fine with this, Mr. President.
Ms. Query.
You said we were funded at 75%, which is about what the state is funded at for retirement.
Yes.
Are you saying that is a good thing?
You probably ought to ask your actuary if that's a good thing.
Okay.
I'm probably not an expert in that. I just report the facts.
All right, so you wouldn't have a recommendation one way or the other on that?
I don't. Do you know anything about that, Michelle? They haven't said anything, no. And this GASB statement that came out, they kept emphasizing in all the classes, this does not change your funding requirements. It only changes the reporting. It has no impact whatsoever on your funding requirements.
Thank you.
But that's what you see normally when you do audits in the state.
Yep, that percentage.
That percentage.
Yeah, in fact, well, most of our clients, not all of them though, but most of the clients are in the state retirement plan. And so they'll all have the exact same percentage because it's a pooled plan where everybody's in it and everybody's got assets and you have a percentage of it.
Mayor Mo? Okay, thank you very much for coming. Is there anything else from council? We'll stand adjourned until our council meeting. Oh.
Just check, make sure Michelle.
All right, do you have something? Okay. All right, we'll stand adjourned until the council meeting in a few minutes.
Thank you very much, Sam.
Thank you.